The best piece of business advice I've ever heard is to get close to your customer. So I balance a lot of duties and responsibilities, and a couple of years ago, I tried to outsource all of our phone calls. For reference, I think we answered something like 4,000 phone calls in the past year. And I initially had somebody else doing that. And after a while, I realized that I had no idea what kind of problems our customers were having, if we should be redesigning our website, what should we add, what should we take away, what was confusing for them, what are customers typically asking, all that kind of stuff. So the closer you are to your customer, the better off you're going to be.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, babies in their diapers, welcome to the Tiberius Show with your host, Tiberius Boy.
That's me, Tiberius.
And welcome to the Tiberius Show today. And I'm your host, Tiberius Boy. And as always, we're looking at various jobs and how they affect the world around us. Today's guest is going to be someone who runs one of the coolest adventure parks ever. We're talking paintball, archery tag, axe throwing, camping, all on 150 acres of just awesome. Do you have any idea what it's like to have a huge adventure park? I have a feeling that we're going to do some shooting, some slinging, some throwing, and dodging our way to find out. Well, let me introduce our next guest, the one, the only, the amazing Maxine Dennis.
Hey, Tiberius, thanks for having me on.
Well, thank you for being on the show. Okay, so Maxine, you're the CEO of Champion Valley Adventure Park in Lakeville, Minnesota. What made you decide to work in an adventure park?
Well, it's kind of a long story. I'll try to give you the shortened version of it, but I actually started out running a couple of escape rooms in the Twin Cities, and those escape rooms were owned by somebody who also owned this adventure park. And so when I worked for them, then he asked me to also work for this adventure park, and cut to 8 years later, and suddenly I'm in charge of it. So, kind of a long story. I didn't ever really intend to go into it, but that's where I ended up.
So, you run 150 acres. That's a lot of acres. What kind of activities can people do there?
Yeah, as you mentioned, we've got paintball, which is we've got two different kinds of paintball. One is kind of the larger impact, which is what you probably think of when you think of paintball. And then we've got a lower impact paintball designed for kids 8 and up. We have axe throwing, we have archery tag, we have camping, we have gel blasters, which is for even younger kids, and we also have airsoft. So a bunch of different activities to pick from, really any age, 5 and up.
So, which one's the most popular?
We actually started out many years ago as just a paintball park, so I would say just paintball is still our most popular activity. But we did see a huge growth in low impact paintball last year, where we went from having about 900 players in 2024 to 1,300 players in 2025. So that's a big jump.
Well, is it the most dangerous one?
Regular impact paintball, which is the bigger one, is probably the most dangerous one. It's definitely the one that you're going to walk away from maybe a couple bruises, maybe a couple of welts. But we've had minimal broken bones.
Good, good. Minimal's a good one. So, your bio says that both of your parents were small business owners. So, what did you learn from watching them?
Well, I learned a lot from both my parents, both on just kind of like the business sense and smarts and all that kind of stuff. But probably the most important thing I learned was just how to take responsibility for everything. They didn't have a boss they could call when something went wrong, it was all on them. My mom owned a bakery, so I distinctly remember many mornings where someone would call in sick and she would have to be at the bakery at 4 o'clock in the morning. I remember cutting family vacations short because, we had someone break into a store or something like that. So it makes my childhood sound kind of tumultuous, like I didn't have a good childhood. But those lessons are something that I would never trade for anything else in the world. It definitely made me who I am today.
So, did that inspire you to run your own business someday?
Yeah, absolutely. I worked a couple of more traditional jobs years ago, and I thought that was kind of my growing up, as someone might say, of like a real full-time 9 to 5 job. And I disliked it so much that I was like, listen, I would rather work 80 hours a week doing something I love. And, the best thing about business ownership is everything you give to it, it gives back to you.
So you originally managed escape rooms before the adventure park. So what's harder to do? Managing escape rooms or managing 150 acres of chaos?
Definitely 150 acres of chaos. I think largely because we're completely outdoor. We have a lot of weather to deal with. We're in Minnesota. We're closed right now, thankfully, but there's certainly plenty of storms and stuff like that we have to figure out.
Okay, so what made you want to take on the CEO role? Because that's like a big job.
That's a great question. So initially, I was given the CEO role and I kind of rolled my eyes about it because I was the general manager and I really felt like I was already doing everything that a CEO would do anyway. And so I kind of said, okay, sure, this is basically just a title change. And that season was the hardest season I have ever worked because I was suddenly in charge of our marketing budget. And there was no one to turn to when I was like, what should we do about this? The founder at that point would look at me and say, you're the CEO, you figure it out. So I didn't really accept it, knowing all the consequences of it. I really thought it was just a cool title change, but I grew to love it.
Okay, so this is a hard question, okay? What part of your job is the most fun?
I don't know that I can narrow it down to a specific part. I think the part that I love the most is all the variability that I have with it, right? I can cut the grass for 8 hours on a day. I can do all of my financial reporting on a day. I can answer all my customer phone calls in a day. It is that I am not pigeonholed into one thing. It's that all of those things are valuable and need to be done for the business to run properly, and I get the freedom to pick what I want to fill my day with.
So, do you ever get to just jump in and play with the guests, or which activity do you prefer?
I could jump in and play with the guests. I generally choose not to. I'm not very good, so that makes a big difference. And people expect me to be really good or have fancy equipment, which I don't have. But I would say if I was going to pick one activity, it would probably still be paintball. I try to do team building with my guys. I've got usually, 12 or 15 employees. They're typically all teenage boys. So they certainly like to shoot the boss at least a couple times a year.
Okay, so what's the weirdest thing that's ever happened at Champion Valley?
Ooh, well, we've been open for like 20 years. So the weirdest thing that I have seen, and we actually had it happen twice this year, where somebody called me and they asked if it was okay if their friend, we had one chicken costume and one dinosaur costume. So it was a bachelor party. We do something called running the gauntlet, typically at the end of every birthday party or bachelor party, where the person of honor will run across the field while all of their friends line up and shoot them. So I would say that that is, and so this customer asked if their bachelor, their friend that was the bachelor, could run the gauntlet in a chicken costume and a dinosaur costume. So that's probably the weirdest thing that I've seen.
Wow, that's really funny. Okay, so do you have like special events like tournaments or group battles?
We do have special events for Airsoft where they will get a big tournament going, and that will be typically anywhere from 50 to 100 players. They'll put together a whole tournament bracket, and they'll play that way. That is largely player organized. We really just kind of provide the facility for that. But it's super fun to see the community come together and see a bunch of people who, don't know each other be put on the same team and have to figure out how to work together.
So your degree is in entrepreneurship, but you also have a welding degree, I hear? How the hell did that happen?
Yeah, so I started out with a welding degree because I wanted to be an engineer and I wanted to be able to do the things as well as write the plans. It was really important to me to not be the kind of engineer who just said, do this, do that, but didn't really know the nuts and bolts of it. And then after getting that degree and potentially moving on to engineering school, I talked to a couple of engineers and heard about what their day-to-day life was like. And that just didn't sound like any fun to me. And I was luckily in very close proximity to an entrepreneur who I admire very much. And basically, I was like, you know what? I actually think that I want your life. So what did you do? And he went to my alma mater as well for entrepreneurship. So I kind of just followed in his footsteps.
Well, do you ever use welding at the adventure park?
Occasionally I do. Yep, it's fun to be able to have those skills and pull out a torch if I need to. And weld something together or braid something together, or I have yet to get to use a plasma torch out there, but I'm sure the day will come.
I'm sure one day. So, what is something kids would be surprised to learn about your job?
I think kids would probably be surprised to know how much time I spend looking at spreadsheets. I spend a lot of time figuring out all the nuts and bolts and the finances and everything. It's not just cutting grass and being outside all day. There is
It's
quite a bit of
not.
admin work involved in well.
Well, it seems like a good time here to take a quick commercial break. Let's hear it from our sponsors.
So you want to make an ad for your company, right?
Yeah, Tiberius, you want to help me?
Okay, so what's the name of the company?
PPWND.
PP what?
Professional Pressure Washing and Detailing.
So you like clean driveways?
Yeah, like that. We pressure wash commercial buildings and semi-truck and trailers.
So how would someone get a hold of you?
They can visit my site at ppwnd.com or call me at 407-900-7793.
So I just tell them to call you at 407-900-7793 or visit ppwnd.com?
Yeah, Tiberius, you got it.
Cut! That's a wrap! Just use that.
Oak Ridge Gun Range is a family-oriented shooting range that has been in business for over 30 years. They specialize in basic firearm training and offer numerous services such as consignments, gun trades, gunsmithing, and concealed weapon classes. I even got my training for gun safety at Oak Ridge Gun Range. Great customer service, and firearm safety is what they do best. So find out more at oakridgegunrange.com.
And we're back here with Maxine Dennis, CEO of Champion Valley Adventure Park. So, Maxine, what does a normal day look like for you?
Well, I'm a big gym rat, so I typically wake up somewhere around 5 a.m., go to the gym for about 2 hours, and then I usually split up my week into admin days and kind of maintenance days. So some days I might go to the park and spend 8 hours on the mower, or a couple hours on the Bobcat fixing things or leveling out fields or adding things or taking things away, fixing guns. All that kind of stuff is really stuff that I spend quite a bit of time doing. Otherwise, I'm working on admin stuff. So that might be doing the schedule for the week, talking to customers, making sure they're all squared away, updating our website if it needs any updates, all those sorts of things. So really no 2 days look the same, but I try to break up my week so I get a little of both in there.
Okay, so what kind of training do your employees need?
They don't need any specific training. We do typically hire people that were customers. So typically we will have somebody play, maybe they're around your age, they'll play with us for a couple of years, and usually the paint discount is enough to get them in the door to want to work there. So usually we hire players, and then we've got a whole training protocol that we take everyone through. We've got a binder, there's tests involved, not everyone's favorite thing, but it's a really nice way to get people started and make sure that they understand everything that needs to be done.
Alright, so because you're located in Minnesota, I know it's very cold up there. So do you have to deal with weather problems up there?
We do have to deal with some weather problems. We do close in the winter. So right now we are completely closed. And I'll typically close everything up right before Thanksgiving, and then typically open back up. Our weather always goes we have a really great last weekend in March, and I'm all right, we're open for the season. And then inevitably we get 6 or 8 inches of snow. We close for the next weekend, and then we're open for the season. So we don't have to deal with too much cold, which is great. But certainly we have storms and lightning and all that kind of stuff that, can certainly throw a wrench in any outdoor adventure.
Okay, so what is one thing people always do wrong the first time they play paintball or airsoft?
Oh, that's a great question. I would say probably the biggest thing that people do wrong is if something malfunctions with their gun, they kind of just try to keep firing it, even if something is wrong. So they'll just keep trying to pull the trigger, and they'll look at a referee, and sometimes they'll look straight down the barrel, which is obviously not a good idea. So I would say that's the biggest thing, that it can be frustrating from a staff perspective.
You don't look at the referee, you go to the referee.
Or even raise your hand. We're happy to come to you. But
As long as you don't say
just
hit when you're
keeping,
raising your hand in airsoft.
that's exactly right.
Okay, so do you have like some themed fields or like special maps?
Yeah, we have 8 different fields, and that kind of expands and contracts every year. Sometimes we'll take one, we'll close one down, we'll add a new one, and they're all a little bit different. We've got one, what's called a hyperball field, which is more of the, if you watch professional paintball, it's modeled after those kinds of fields. We have ones that are just woods ball. My favorite is artillery, which is on a big hill, and we can do a lot of D-Day simulations on that field. We added boats this year to make it feel like very much like Normandy, which was really cool.
Okay. So what makes paintball different from airsoft? Is one
There's a
just
lot
like
of
dirtier than the other?
yeah. I mean, paintball, like you're gonna get dirty in terms of paint, right? Like the paint is gonna splatter on your clothes. But I would say paintball is more painful, in my opinion. And then airsoft is something that I really recommend to people who are really interested in that kind of military simulation feeling, because you can come in a full kit and you can really look like you just walked off the battlefield. Your gun feels very similar to a real gun. So I always tell parents, if your kid is really into Call of Duty, they're probably going to enjoy airsoft.
Yeah. Okay, so what's the funniest thing you've seen someone do during a match?
The funniest thing I've seen someone do is probably light. So we have grenades, right? And grenades, we use smoke grenades, paint grenades, BB grenades. Our most popular is a smoke grenade, but I have seen people pull the pin on those and just drop them at their feet as if they're providing their own cover. It's kind of it's like an interesting tactic that never works out for them. And they kind of
Only
waste the
works in
smoke
video
grenade.
games.
Yeah,
People, please.
and if you throw the smoke grenade, that's great. But like to pull it, drop it on your feet, and just hope that it provides you enough cover is a little goofy.
If I was them, I would throw it at the door. Not
Yes,
on
exactly.
you, because then you can't see it, but they might be able to see you. You don't know that. So just throw it at the door, and when they try to peek a little bit, then you start shooting.
Exactly.
Man. So, what's like the best piece of business advice someone has ever given you?
The best piece of business advice I've ever heard is to get close to your customer. So I balance a lot of duties and responsibilities, and a couple of years ago, I tried to outsource all of our phone calls. For reference, I think we answered something like 4,000 phone calls in the past year. And I initially had somebody else doing that. And after a while, I realized that I had no idea what kind of problems our customers were having, if we should be redesigning our website, what should we add, what should we take away, what was confusing for them, what are customers typically asking, all that kind of stuff. So the closer you are to your customer, the better off you're going to be.
So, when something goes wrong at the park, how fast do you fix it normally?
Oh, I would say ideally less than 25 minutes, depending on what it is. Probably our most common issue is with our fill stations. So we have a big giant compressor, and that compressor fills bulk tanks, and those bulk tanks then go out to fill stations. Those fill stations are what fills the air tanks on your gun. As you can imagine, that's a lot of moving pieces, and it's critical to get them all right. And if something goes wrong, it's also really dangerous. It's really scary. It's something I don't let anybody else work on. This year, I broke 2 windows, just messing around with the fill stations. So I've got it budgeted in. We break a window every year. So that's something that is probably our most common problem. And usually, if we have the materials on hand, then I can fix it usually within 25 minutes.
Wow. Okay. So, what do you wish more people understood about running a business?
I wish more people understood how much you are trading your own time for money. And I think that especially as a small business, I think a lot of my friends especially are like, "Oh, well, you run your own business, so you can do whatever you want," which is sort of true. But it also means that if somebody calls me and says, "Hey, I want to book an 8-person group today," and I don't have a right to run it, but technically I could go run it. I have the choice of saying, well, do I want to go run that group, or do I want to say no to $350? So that can be a tough, you're always doing that math, always that calculation of like, all right, how much is this going to cost the business and therefore cost me?
So, why would a kid listening today want to grow up and do your job?
Well, I think I have the coolest job of all time. So I'm not sure how well you can see behind me. It's on the other side. But this is a map of our park, and I'm planning out zombie paintball for next year. I just can't imagine a better job than that.
That's going to be fun. I might have to travel to Minnesota next year. Got it. So, on that note, let's take a quick break to pay some bills.
The Tiberius Show would like to thank one of their dedicated sponsors, Custom Designs Orlando. These guys are on Mills Avenue and do all sorts of stuff, ranging from photo ID badges, engraved signs, custom braille ADA signs, vinyl lettering to trophies and awards. The cool part about Custom Designs is they can ship products all over the United States. You can reach them at 407-898-0373 and tell them that
Tiberius
sent you.
Over 40 years, Lighthouse Central Florida has provided education, independent life skills, and job training to thousands of Central Floridians who live with blindness or any degree of vision loss. Whether it's picking out clothes in the morning or just moving around your community and serving Orange, Seminole, and Osceola counties, contact Lighthouse Central Florida at 407-898-2483 or visit them online at lighthousecfl.org.
And we are back here with the incredibly awesome Maxine Dennis, entrepreneur, CEO, and adventure park superstar. So, Maxine, you're also working on a startup called Telos, which helps young people discover what they want to do with their lives. What inspired that?
Well, I think probably very similar to you. I'm very passionate about people finding the jobs that they love sooner. So it all started while I was working at St. Thomas, and I was working in their career development center. So students would come into me, and typically they would need a resume update, or they would need help job interviewing or job shadowing or all that kind of stuff that you do when you're in college and you're looking to figure out what you want to do when you graduate. So they would come to me after their junior year and they would say, hey, I did this internship over the summer and I really hated it. Well, St. Thomas is a pretty expensive school. I was lucky enough to get a bunch of scholarships and all that kind of stuff. But if you're paying full price, you're probably paying upwards of $40,000 a year. So these students were changing their majors and having to tack on extra years of school. So when I discovered that and talked to more students about it, I realized that there's got to be a better way. And getting students into those internships faster is the right way, in my opinion, to do that, because nothing trumps experience. You're always going to learn the most by experiencing things firsthand rather than reading about it. I think this podcast is a great example. You get to hear people talk about their jobs, certainly better than nothing, but nothing can beat that experience piece.
So, what do kids struggle with the most when deciding what to do after high school?
Well, I think that's almost a question for you. You're not that far off from that age, but in my experience, it is typically that they can see their parents and what their parents do, but their scope of the world just isn't that big yet, right? They haven't really figured out what they might want to do. If their parents don't have jobs that they think that they would like, they're kind of limited on what they know exists in the world.
So, what makes a structured gap year helpful?
Well, I think that the term gap year is typically reserved, in my experience, for rich people that then go travel the world. A structured gap year helps students find those internships that they might be interested in that job, and it helps them along in that process rather than just setting them free in Spain for a year and hoping they figure out who they are in that time. So a lot of structure when it comes to the internships, and then a lot of curriculum in terms of the real world learning. So we'll teach you how to do everything from change a tire to balance your 401k.
Nice. So if you could tell every teen one thing about choosing their future, what would it be?
You're never going to know what you want to do. The more time you take to figure it out now, the better off you will be.
Okay. Well, now I interview people so that teens can learn all about the different jobs out there that they might want to try. So, which industries do you show teens to try out during their gap year?
Well, we all start with a career test. So, a career test that takes into account what you're naturally good at, because I think that's a really important thing rather than fighting against the grain your whole life. What kind of job is going to give you the lifestyle that you want? So, my best example of this is my older sister wanted to work with kids no matter what she wanted to do. She wanted to work with kids. That was all that mattered to her. But she also wanted to have 6 or 7 vacations a year and, live in a pretty nice house and all that kind of stuff. So being a teacher wasn't in the cards for her. But being a pediatrician made perfect sense because she could work with kids and make a good amount of money. So that's really important. There we go. And so we take all those things into consideration, and we help them figure out what they're good at, what kind of lifestyle they might want, and then generally their work style preferences, right? Like me, I love to wear a bunch of different hats. I love the variability of my job, but there's a lot of people that would hate that and that they just want to do their one thing, and that's totally okay. So that self-discovery piece of figuring out what they want to do, and then we set them up with the internships in the industries that come up basically of that test.
So, what have you learned about yourself through running these businesses?
I have learned that I am okay at a lot of things, and I should just accept being okay at a lot of things rather than trying to get really good at one thing.
So, if you could change anything to make your job easier, what would it be?
Ooh, I have considered planting what's called buffalo grass out at the paintball park, which is grass that only ever grows 4 inches long, because that would eliminate my need to cut the grass.
Okay. So, if you could go back in time and give your 14-year-old Maxine advice, what would it be?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think I would tell myself to get out of my hometown faster. So I grew up in Green Bay, Wisconsin. And in Green Bay, I mean, my parents were small business owners, so I got a larger glimpse of the world than a lot of people do. But, it's a paper mill town. So either you work for the Packers or you work for the paper mill. So I think, telling myself to broaden the scopes and really shoot for the stars, find someone who you want to be when you grow up and spend as much time with them as humanly possible.
If you could design any new activity for your park, no limits, what would it be?
Well, I've seen a couple of videos online of tanker paintball. So they attach paintball guns to these little mini tanks, and then people drive around and shoot each other. If there was no budgetary issue, that would definitely be the thing I would add.
Wow. Okay. So, what do you like to do for fun when you're not running an adventure park?
Oh, well, I kind of already mentioned I'm a gym rat, so I spend a lot of time at the gym, and I love to read. And, I don't play video games often, but if I do, I'm playing Guitar Hero. So that's where you can find me.
Okay. So, what was the biggest mistake that you've ever made? And how did it change you as a person?
Ooh, the biggest mistake I have ever made is probably hanging on to an employee long after I should have let them go. And that was really difficult because I was, hurting myself in the process because work was no longer enjoyable for me. And ultimately, I was hurting him by taking away his opportunity to go find something else. So I think that really taught me that, kind is nice. So I think that's something we say often in Minnesota is, you can be kind and let someone go so they can find their next thing. And that's better than being nice and just kind of letting them stay working for you, even though that it's a bad fit for both sides.
Okay. Now, can you tell me that one story? Remember, this is a kid's show, but that one story, that you're not supposed to tell me about. Come on, you can tell me.
All right, I'll tell you. So we're gonna bring you back to my escape room days. So back when we were running this escape room, we had this giant thing. It was called a mixing machine. It was in our science themed room. So it was tubes and water and all this kind of stuff. You had to enter the right code into it. And eventually this door would lower and you would get the vial, the antidote handed out to you. Well, we had a prop malfunction that day, which happens from time to time. And so instead of this working, this door wasn't lowering. So instead of that happening, I stayed crouched in behind this mixing machine. And when they got the code right, which I could hear, I just handed them the antidote rather than them getting it like nicely delivered to them. But it was in a fog machine. Like there's a fog machine as well. So then it just looked like this hand coming out of the fog. And they thought it was the coolest thing ever. They had no idea that something was wrong. They just thought that that was normal. And I stood cramped back there for 60 minutes, hoping that they would get it right so I could just hand it to them.
Well, is there anything else you think my listeners should know about you and what you do?
Being a CEO is not for everyone, but I definitely recommend at some point in your life you work for a small business or for a startup of some kind. So that's really the best way to learn about business and all the different assets, because you do get to wear so many different hats and you really get to figure out what you're good at and what you like.
Well, do you have a website or a social media to where my people can follow your mark?
Yeah, absolutely. So either if you want to follow the Gap Year adventure, that's Find Telos. So find telos.com. And if you're in Minnesota or you want to make a special trip for zombie paintball in October, we're at championvalleypark.com.
Well, what is one question that you think I forgot to ask you?
Well, you didn't ask me how many paintballs we went through last year. And, like I mentioned, we do a lot of statistics, so I can tell you exactly how many paintballs we went through for the whole year and how it breaks down per person.
How many?
We went through 1,900,003 paintballs in the year of 2025, which breaks down to about 664 per person.
Damn.
It's a lot of paint.
That's a lot of paintballs.
It's a lot of paintballs. But, hey, next year we're hoping for 4 million. So
how many were accurate?
Yeah, let's see. I don't know. The three at the end of 1 million.
The 3 out of the entire thing were hits. Got it.
Yeah, exactly.
So thank you so much, Maxine, for being my special guest. Can you stick around for Math Corners?
I would love to stick around for Math Corners. Here we go.
Aw, Dad, my computer's slow again and I can't play my games.
Call your computer solutions today and we will scan for viruses and clean that computer up remotely and make it fast again. Our phone number is 407-826-0810.
Thanks, Dad. My computer's fast again. Now I can do my homework. Thanks for calling your computer solutions at 407-826-0810.
Tiberius' favorite subject, it's Math Corners!
And thank you, Maxine, for helping me with Math Corners. This week, we're just about step word problems. My dad is always good at finding new problems for me to solve, and today, we're going to talk about making an amusement park. So you should be good at this one. Okay, so Susie is planning about making a new attraction at her amusement park called Susieland. So at the attraction, they have all sorts of stuff, having laser tag, axe throwing, and a huge roller coaster. So now the whole cost for this is about $130,000 a month. So the axe throwing makes about $50,000 a month, and the laser tag only makes about $30,000. How much money would the roller coaster have to make in order to keep the entire place running?
All right. Well, so if we're at axe throwing at 50,000 and we've got laser tag for 30, then I believe our roller coaster's got to make, what is that, 50,000. So it's got to match your axe throwing in order for you to just break even.
Not even make a profit. But you know what? Let's just figure this out, okay? Well, this is a real-world problem because people who run amusement parks have to make their money back to continue making people have fun. So first, you have to figure out how much the laser tag and axe throwing makes combined. This is just simple addition, guys. If the axe throwing it makes $50,000 and the laser tag only makes $30,000, you have to. It's just 30 plus 50, which is 80, so it's $80,000. Now I have to figure out how much money is needed to pay off the rest of the money to run the park. So to do this, we take the total amount of money and subtract what we already have. So to do this, we take the original price of $130,000, subtract the $80,000 we make from the other attractions, and then we would get our answer. So $130,000 minus $8,000 is, carry the 1 over 3, 13 minus 8 is 5. So basically we have to make another $50,000 worth on the roller coaster. But that's without paying taxes and the money from the concession stands. So
Yikes.
you were right. Okay, so Maxine, do you ever have to make budgets like this for your real purpose?
Oh yeah, we make budgets all the time and we check against those budgets and we adjust them and all that kind of stuff. I am actually basically this week deep in 2026 budget planning. Most people would not really enjoy it, but I call that spreadsheet heaven. So that's exactly what I'm doing right now.
Well, my teachers always say that I'll use math every single day. How do you use math in your work?
I use math all the time as well, and a lot of it is for forecasting for the future. So, for example, one thing that I get to order is grenades. So, smoke grenades, paint grenades, all that kind of stuff. So, I go back and I look at how many we sold last year, and then I look at this year and say, well, we're up about 10% in sales. So, then going forward, I should order 10% more to make sure that everyone can get their grenade they want.
Well, thank you so much, Maxine, for your help with Math Corners. And now it's time for the Heart of a Lion. As you know, we talk about the qualities of living by the heart of a lion, which stands for leadership, integrity, obedience, and ability. This week, we're going to talk about integrity. For me, I think integrity is doing what is right, even when no one else is looking. The qualities of integrity is honesty, sincerity, truthfulness, and fairness. So this week, my friend Nate did a very bad thing. He used ChatGPT on one of his school assignments and got caught using it in class. So he was then taken to the principal's office with me as the witness and got to lecture all about using AI on assignment and how it's a very bad thing. He confessed completely to the use of AI and got a full week's worth of lunch detention. This shows the opposite of integrity by using AI in the first place, but then owning up to his mistake showed integrity by doing the right thing. So, Maxine, do you have an example of integrity that you saw this week?
Well, as you know, I'm in Minnesota and we got about 12 inches of snow this week. And I am in a new house. I moved this summer and I went out to the back to shovel and my neighbor had already shoveled for me. So very generous, lots of integrity there, super appreciated them doing that, and I saw them do it also for some of our neighbors who are a little bit more elderly. I am totally able-bodied and able to shovel. So I really appreciated the time saver, but I'm sure my neighbors who are a little bit older, appreciated not having to risk their bodies in order to get that done.
Yeah. So, Maxine, of all of the Heart of Lion virtues, which is the one that you'll see the most?
I probably see obedience the most, and that is important for us at the paintball park, largely because of safety. So that's really important to make sure that people are listening and that they know that, messing around really could cause serious damage. And also, like I said, I spend a lot of time at the gym. And gym, you got to be very obedient and very patient to see those results pay off.
Well, we should always try to be lion strong in everything we do, shouldn't we?
Absolutely.
And that's our show, folks. I want to thank the one, the only, the amazing Maxine Dennis for being on my show. It has been so much fun talking to you today. I think I learned a lot about your work running an adventure park and your new business, Telos.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Tiberius. This was a great show.
Do you mind giving your social media and website again for the people that want to follow you?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you want to follow the Gap Year Startup, that is at findtelos.com, TELOS.com. If you want to follow the Adventure Park, we are at championvalley.com or at Champion Valley on all social media.
Well, you can also find me on Facebook and Instagram and all that sorts of stuff at The Tiberius Show. And I would like to thank WWPR 1490AM, Cans 98, Soul Radio 24/7, ECUA TV, and all the other stations that air my show. And please visit The Tiberius Show on YouTube and hit that subscribe button. So, Maxine, are you subscribed yet?
Well, hold on one second. Wait one. Tiberius Show.
Wow, not
This
subscribed yet.
The pro of ready? 3, 2, 1, subscribed. You now have
Yeah, there we
740
go. Okay,
subscribers.
Okay. So, This week, Waffle Houses says, now that's some smart thinking. And Fatal J says, from legal ink to instant icon. This title alone feels like a graphic novel waiting to be made. Well, your storytelling instincts are sharp, dramatic, and full of heart, and the story is half as compelling as the title. You got a masterpiece on your hands. Bravo. I genuinely think he was talking about Ryan Estrada, which was one of my other guests. But be sure to leave a comment on my videos. I might even mention yours at the end of the show. And also, be sure to visit us next on the Tiberius Show with your host, Tiberius Boy. And that's a wrap.